Today's event is going to be moderated by Rick Hancock and produced by Michael Grillo. Rick is a co-partner at My Mobile Life, a digital marketing company, and just a dear friend and colleague, and I'm so glad to have Rick with us again today. In his former work out east, he was a journalist and reporter for Fox CT and has done incredible work in writing through the years. And we're so glad he moved to Atlanta, and I had a chance to meet him and work with him. So excited to have him with us today to help bring this conversation to you all. And then also Michael Grillo producing this event for us today. I can't do this without him. I mean, knowing we've got someone behind the scenes making sure everything is on and we're recording, people are getting into this presentation. Thank you, Michael, co-founder, as I said, and chief operating officer of My Mobile Life. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. Welcome again to the Alpharetta Chamber of Commerce's 2020 legislative recap. Oh my goodness, what a year. And in 2020 is going to be amazing. So many great plans. And of course, just for me personally, lots of goals, and then mid-March to be hit with COVID, where we were locked down and faced just something that none of us probably have ever had to be faced with before. So here we are, and some amazing things happened with 11 days, seeing our legislative group come back together and get some amazing things accomplished. So today, I just want to introduce to you Senator John Albers, Chief Deputy Whip and representing District 56. And also, it's important to highlight the work that Senator Albers is doing in terms of the committees. Appropriations, he's Vice Chair of the Finance Committee, Chairman of the Public Safety Committee, Regulated Industries and Utilities, Retirement ex officio, Rules ex officio, and Veterans, Military, and Homeland Security ex officio. Also with us today is Senator Brandon Beach, and he represents District 21. He is involved in administrative affairs, economic development and tourism, higher education, MARTALK, Rules, and Chairman of the Transportation Committee for the state of Georgia. Welcome, Senators.
Thanks for having us.
I'd like to now turn it over to my dear friend, colleague, and our moderator today, Rick Hancock.
Thank you, Deborah, and good afternoon, everyone. We will get into the program right now, and you can see on your screen if you want to submit any questions. We're going to leave plenty of time for you to ask your question. They'll be fed to me. I'll take a look at them, and we'll get your questions answered. It's always difficult when you have two esteemed officials on who to ask to speak first. So a lot of times can make it easy by going alphabetical order, and since we have an A, B, but as a point of personal privilege, the last time I saw Senator B was at a chamber event in February. Shortly after that, we all learned that he came down with COVID. So I first want to ask him, how you doing? How you feeling? And just how you doing?
I'm feeling great, and I want to thank everybody for their thoughts and prayers, and people that called. You know, Chantel and I found out we've got a lot of friends here in North Fulton and Alpharetta, and because we had people calling. Senator Albers called Chantel every day, checking on us, and but I'm feeling good. It was a week of tough times for a week, but we never went to the hospital. And now the good news is I'm part of a Emory research clinic, and going down and giving blood once a month and plasma, and they're watching my antibodies and T cells to kind of study them. Since I was one of the first ones to get it, they want to see what that what happens in the future.
Okay.
But I want to just thank everybody. You know, I got beat up a little bit by the AJC. And I made a mistake, and I admitted it, but took responsibility for it, owned it. But anyway, I was very fortunate that day. Nobody got sick from me going down there. But anyway, thanks again for asking. But it's, I just would say this: that we've got to respect the coronavirus, but we can't live in fear of it. We've got to continue to open business and get businesses back up and running. But be common sense, wash your hands, social distance, wear a mask, do all the things that we need to do. But we got to live life and we got to move on, and get schools reopened and get businesses back open. We can't completely shut the economy down. We won't survive. So.
Great. Thank you very much. It's great to see you. I'll let you catch your breath and we'll go to Senator Albers. What we want to do is just give you a few minutes to overview of your perspective of the past legislative session. Deborah mentioned some of the committees that you're on. If you want to, take a few minutes of taking a look back of what you personally accomplished and what the legislative body accomplished. And we'll come back to Senator Beach.
Certainly. Thank you, Rick. And first, Deborah, I want to thank you for your incredible work, both at the Alpharetta Chamber and all the work you've done over the decades in the past. So thank you for doing a great job. And I want to thank my dear friend, Senator Brandon Beach. Not a day goes by that the two of us have not been tag teaming and working on important stuff for our community. And I tell you, nothing can get done in elected office by yourself. But I would tell you what, when the Beach and Albers team were together, not too much can stop us. And I'm so glad that he's healthy. And he's obviously smarter than me because he looks like he's a lot more casual today. I had to come down to the Capitol. We just did something that is noteworthy for business, though. We just confirmed the governor's appointment for the first clerk of the statewide business court. We literally just voted that out of committee to confirm just a few minutes ago. Thrilled with that. Statewide business courts is one more reason why Georgia is the #1 place to do business. And we want to make sure that the courts are capable and educated to handle complex business issues so we can lead the way. A couple of things I want to talk about. First and foremost, the one thing that is always present in our minds is the budget. We did end up having to reduce the budget by 10%, which does seem like a very daunting task. That's $2.5 to $3 billion. However, when we first started going down to session and talking about it, we were looking at a 14% budget cut. But because of the great work that Georgia's doing with bringing people back to work, that 10% meant nobody was furloughed, right? That was a huge difference for the state. We were able to keep critical services in place, special needs waivers, all the things that we had in place that we hold most critical and sacred to make sure Georgia was going to continue to move forward. Now, one of those reasons is the leadership that we have had, and the governor and the lieutenant governor have done phenomenal work. And I just want to give you these important statistics. In April, the national unemployment went to 14.7. That's a Great Depression level number. But Georgia was at 12.6. Then we fast forward into May. The nation is at 13.3. Georgia's at 9.4. And now the June numbers came out. The national average is 11.1, and we are 7.6. That's the fastest drop of unemployment ever recorded in history. We're 31.5% lower than the national average. And because of that, our revenue numbers are coming in stronger, only down 8% year over year. It is my hope and prayer that come sometime before the end of the year in January, Chairman Beach and I are back down at the Capitol, able to look at some of that revenue, redeploy it as we need to. But because of our fiscal responsibility, because we had a rainy day fund, because we were laser focused on getting people to work, we are in great shape, and we are number 12th in the nation in that right now. And I see us climbing even faster. A couple of things I want to mention that are really important for business. First one was a bill that I worked very closely on with many others, which is Senate Bill 359. This is the Business Immunity Act. This is the subdivisions that you might live in that are afraid to open up their swimming pool, or the small business afraid that they're going to be sued. So this started out with a phone call I got from some folks with the Hotel Association and the Restaurant Association and said, "You're not going to believe what's happening in California. There are billboards in California saying, 'Do you think you got COVID at work? Give me a call.'" This is what I would call your traditional ambulance chaser type of lawsuits. Well, if we're going to ever spring forward and do the right thing, getting people back to work, we can't have frivolous lawsuits. Now, this doesn't give a free pass to somebody did something wrong, but it does get rid of those frivolous lawsuits. So that was a really big bill. I've been talking to the governor about it. I hope to have it signed here in the next few days. A couple other bills that I worked on is I worked closely with the Grace Commission that was set up by the First Lady, as well as the Governor and the Attorney General on 3 separate bills to help end human trafficking, which is something we've been talking about for several years. We do a lot of work out of the North Fulton area. In fact, my good friend Dave McCleary made that one of Rotary's largest functions globally now to end. So we passed bills there, also helped the Attorney General to prosecute those cases, as well as to fight things such as Medicaid fraud. Also passed a bill to help out with foster care to make sure that those involved in the system are doing the right things with the children for which they have responsibility for. A few other things that we passed, probably one of the most historic bills that I got to participate in was House Bill 426. That was a hate crimes law for Georgia. Some people don't know the history there, but Georgia was one of only 4 states that did not have a hate crimes law. However, we actually did pass one back in the mid-2000s. Unfortunately, that law was found to be unconstitutional by the courts. So we were ahead of that game, but then we obviously needed to catch up. We worked very closely with all the interested parties, and we wanted to make sure that would be a deterrent against those who want to do evil. And I guess the message we really want to send is that if you are trying to biasly motivated and targeted people for any reason, we are not only going to throw you in jail, but we're going to lock you up and toss the key, right? There is no room for that in Georgia. Likewise, I was proud to help sponsor and be a part of House Bill 838, which did some of those same things for our first responders, our police officers, our EMTs, our firefighters, who are also put into those same extraordinary circumstances and have been literally and figuratively under attack as well. So we want to make sure that everybody's safe and we're protecting everybody. And I just want to say that in today's more polarizing times, we have to make sure we take a step back and take a deep breath, because I believe 99.9% of all people and of all professions are good people. Now, is there 0.1% of bad in everything? Certainly. There's been 0.1% bad in police officers and firefighters. But folks, we've also seen this in every level of business. We've seen it in the church. We've seen it in Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts. We've seen it on the athletic field. We've seen it everywhere. But if we were ever to label any one of those by the 0.1% that did wrong, well, we've done exactly opposite of what we're trying to accomplish, which is to not label and to do things right. So I think very good progress being made there, and I'm happy to report the good work we did. One that's always particularly excitable to some of my friends is we did in fact pass alcohol delivery to your house. So when you need that bottle of wine delivered to your house now, you can make a call and get it sent right over. Yes, cheers, Rick. Thank you.
Cheers.
And then just one other thing, or 2 other things I want to talk about, and I'll turn it over to Senator Beach for his remarks, is we passed surprise medical billing reform. And if you have ever been to the hospital before and you had any type of a procedure, or if you went to the emergency room, you're going to have many people see you. What happens is you may have worked this out ahead of time with your insurance company. You went to what you thought was the right hospital or the right doctor, et cetera. But one of the folks out of those 4 or 5 that saw you sent you a bill was out of network. And what you thought was going to be your normal copays and your normal deductible, all of a sudden came back and sometimes 5 and tens of thousands of dollars. So we passed a great bill to correct that, as well as the ability to fill up your pharmaceuticals and your prescriptions months in advance during states of emergency, such as we are in right at this moment. So it was an extraordinary end of the legislative session. I will tell you, Brandon and I were talking even a few days before the session started. We weren't sure exactly what might happen. At any point we thought we might have to pass a budget and just go home. But what happened was an extraordinary end of the legislative session, done safely, effectively, and we really served the people of Georgia. So with that in mind, I'll turn it over to my friend and colleague, Brandon.
Well, thanks, Senator. First off, I want to echo what Chairman Albers said. Deborah, you've done a great job for the community. You did a great job for me at North Fulton Chamber when we were a team and I was the CEO. But you're doing a great job with the Alpharetta Chamber, and thank you. And I want to thank all the members of the board at the Alpharetta Chamber and everybody on this call. Small business is so important to us here in this area. And I can tell you, between me and Chairman Albers, you've got 2 pro-business legislators down there in the General Assembly. And I can tell you this, out of the 56 senators, they are very envious of what we have here in North Fulton. We have it all up here. And some of our colleagues, they don't have but 1 or 2 red lights in their district, much less the businesses we're blessed with. But you know, when you peel the onion back, the reason we have such successful businesses here, I think the foundation is our good education, our good K through 12 schools up here in North Fulton. And now we have the technical college that both Senator Albers and I both worked on to get the financing $25 million to build that technical college. And as we come out of this COVID-19, I can tell you those type of careers are going to be much needed that are coming out of our technical colleges. And I'm a big believer in our technical college system. And I can tell you we have one of the best in the country when it comes to technical education. I'll talk about a couple things that I was involved in, and I'm still involved in it because we extended it till December 31st, and it's a Freight and Logistics Commission to really look at how we move freight through our state. One of the things we're blessed with, when you look at our state, we have 3 major economic engines, in my opinion. We have Hartsfield-Jackson Airport, we have the Port of Savannah, and then we have the World Congress Center convention facility that generates a lot of income when we get out of this COVID-19 and start filling hotels up again and restaurants. But even during the COVID-19, the Port of Savannah has grown at double digits. Last year it grew at 16.6%. But one of the things we face is that with that growth is how we move freight through our state. And right now about 17% of the freight coming out of Savannah is on rail. The rest is truck traffic. So we got 83% of it coming on 18-wheelers. And if we continue to grow at double digits every year like we have the past 10 years, we just can't take any more 18-wheelers around Georgia 285, 85, 75, and 400. So we've got to figure out how to get that freight on rail to 30 to 35%. And we're working on that with CSX, Norfolk Southern, and they're doing a major expansion on the Jimmy Mason rail yard down at the port. So that's underway. And we will solve this because we want to continue to be the logistics capital. And I used to say this. I used to say we were the logistics capital of the Southeast, and I was wrong. We're the logistics capital of the Eastern Seaboard. When you look at where all our freight's going, it's amazing what Savannah does and where that freight goes. Another thing we did, it was House Bill 511. We changed it up quite a bit, but one of the significant things we did is the ATL, which is the transit entity that kind of brings all the transit entities together to have some great communication and collaboration and coordination, to have a seamless, efficient, clean, and most of all, safe ride on transit. We put that under GDOT, and we changed how the board members are voted on, and so there's some staggered terms and so on. The other bit of news coming out of GDOT is the managed lanes up 400, which will be great for our mobility coming up 400. You have 2 new lanes, both northbound and southbound, coming up 400. And let me tell you, one of the things that happened recently, and Senator Albers and I were fortunate enough to be there with President Trump when he made the announcement that he's going to cut the environmental study down to a two years maximum. So if it's not done in 2 years, they're building the project. You're going to either have a yes or no within 2 years. If y'all remember correctly, when we built that section of West Side Parkway from Mansell Road to Topgolf, that took 7 years just to do the federal NEPA environmental study. 7 years for that little short segment of property. That's unacceptable to take 7 years. Some of these are taking 10 to 20 years. And so we're gonna really expedite the process by doing that. 400 managed lanes is one of those. The 75 truck lanes and the 400 managed lanes are going to go under this new process, so we're going to be able to fast track both of those projects. The other thing that I would talk to you a little bit about really is more of a CID issue, but we are really working on connected vehicles, and it's way over my head. I went to LSU, and I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but it is technology that's going to really help. And Senator Albers has talked a lot about how we're going to solve some of our mobility and congestion issues by the use of technology. And I do think it's going to take new roads and bridges. It's going to take transit that's coordinated and is collaborative. And it's also going to take a lot of technology and taking all those. There's not one silver bullet, but when you do all three of them, I do think we're going to see some really, progress when it comes to congestion relief and mobility. And then the last thing I would just talk about, and he touched on it, but foster care. We really have made a lot of progress in this area. And I want to thank Rick Jackson from Jackson Healthcare, who has Faith Bridge. It's a nonprofit. And one of the things we're looking at is when kids age out of the foster care system at 18, we've got to help them from 18 on get jobs and be productive. A statistic that just blew me away was 71% of females out when they get out of foster care at 18, by the time they turn 19, 71% of them are pregnant. And that just creates a vicious cycle. So we have to figure out how we get these kids from 18 to 22 that are coming out of the foster care system, get them in a technical college or a field or a job and be productive and do well. Because we can't just throw them out to society without any help. You follow me? And that's one of the things that Rick and Faith Bridge is working on. And I know Senator Albers is very involved in this also. Because we've got, the government can't solve this. It's going to take the faith-based community, the business community, and all of us working together to solve that issue, because we want these folks to be productive. So really, that's about all I have. We'll just open it up for questions. But I will tell you, one thing I would like to tell you is this, and just a point of personal privilege. I just won my reelection, so I'm in. I don't have a Democrat opponent in November, so I'm going to get to serve a 5th term, and I want to thank everybody for allowing me to be your senator. But I want to tell you, we need to get this guy reelected, John Albers. He's in a tough campaign in November. It's going to be all hands on deck, and there's nobody more pro-business than John Albers down there, and we got to make sure we get him reelected. He's done a great job in the last 10 years. He and I ran against each other. And but I will tell you, I'm going to be working as hard as I can to make sure we reelect him. We've got to keep him down there. He's done a great job on public safety. He's pro-business, and he gets it. And he's one of my best friends down there. So I really want to make sure we get him reelected. I'm going to ask everybody to help out because we got to get him back in office.
Thank you, Senators. Please start submitting your questions in the Q&A chat, and we'll start asking them. But until then, I have a couple of questions. I'll start with you, Senator Beach. And you touched on something that I first moved to Alpharetta, and you were working at the GNFCC. I knew that you were very, very passionate towards the transportation issues. And, it has been a divisive kind of topic in certain parts of Metro Atlanta, but you've always been a strong advocate on trying to figure out a better way. And you touched on some of the things that you got accomplished this session. Can you look ahead, or is there some legislation that maybe didn't make it through committee that you think is good legislation that would make good transportation sense for the region, or are there some things that maybe you can foreshadow to us that you really hope will get passed in future sessions?
Well, I will tell you what I hope happens. I hope that the federal government, when we send, every time you pump a gallon of gas, 15 cents, 16 cents goes up to Washington, D.C. And we want to get that money back. And I think the president made one move to consolidate the environmental process down to 2 years. But what I'd like to see happen is they block grant some of that money back with no federal strings attached and let us put shovels in the dirt. Is if we could get that money working quicker, we could get things done on the state level much more efficient than going through the federal process, if you will. We'd still have to be accountable to USDOT and let them know that the projects were working. But, I always tell this example. Thank God President Eisenhower had the vision and the political courage to build the interstate system when he did. And between 1956 and 1970, in 14 years, we built 46,000 miles of interstate in the United States. And as I just said, we spent 7 years just doing a study on less than 2 miles on West Side Parkway. We could never build 46,000 miles of interstate today in 14 years. It just couldn't happen unless we start getting some of that money back with cutting out all the red tape. So I would like to work more with Congress right now. We've done a lot in the state of of Georgia. I can tell you we're the envy of the Southeast when we go to SASHTO and any of these transportation Southeast organizations. Everybody, SLC and those type things, they are envious of what we've done with our transportation funding, our transit, trying to bring everything together, and now technology, and that's going to play a major part. And then the biggest thing, like I said, is freight and logistics. We got to figure out freight. When you fly into Atlanta, you look at all those distribution centers down there, everything comes into Atlanta, then it gets redistributed and out to like I said, the Eastern Seaboard. We got to figure out how we get that freight moving through Atlanta in a much more efficient fashion. So I would tell you that those are the things I'm going to continue to work on.
Senator Albers, I covered politics for 20 years, and I can honestly say that, politicians always say, my friend so-and-so, my friend so-and-so. Most of the time it's not sincere. I would think that Senator Beach's accolades for you were very, very sincere. So I'm sure that you appreciated that. But my question to you, and again, folks, ask your questions in the Q&A, and we can start asking them to the senators. We are talking to an audience of business leaders, business owners, entrepreneurs. What are some of the, when folks are coming up to you, whether they're formally or informally lobbying you on what they need? What are their needs? What weren't you able to get addressed this session or in past sessions that you really hope you can accomplish for the business community here in Alpharetta, North Fulton County, and throughout the state?
Well, that's a good question. Obviously, in anything we're doing for business, we have to constantly advance the ball, move forward. So the analogy that we often like to use is there's no such thing as neutral. We're either moving forward or you're moving backwards. And, Senator Beach addressed this, and he's been a real champion for our education workforce. We constantly have to have those feeder programs put in place. And while we've done a really good job with our technical college as well as our traditional college and universities, we need to tie them together even more, right? So you got to think about the kids that we've got starting right now who are in elementary and middle school, who have to have a plan through high school, technical college, even advanced and graduate degrees in order to fill those positions because we want those jobs here. One of the things that Brandon and I work with our Lieutenant Governor Jeff Duncan in is we want to be the technology capital of the Eastern Seaboard. We are already the Southeast. We want the Eastern Seaboard. We always joked about it, but there was truth. We wanted to be Peachtree Valley, not Silicon Valley, right? But to do that, one of the things we need to focus more on is to get more of that venture and angel investment dollars coming into Georgia. Because what happens too many times, we have great companies that start here, but then they get funding from somewhere in California or Boston or New York, and they take them and they move them, right? Well, we want to keep them here. And in the past, Georgia's been more about, we call it a development investment community. As an example, you invested money because you wanted to build commercial real estate, a new office building, a hospital, a medical office building, things of that nature. We need to have folks here thinking about how do I invest more in startup companies? And technology is the future, as well as think of any single thing that you do today that technology is not a part of. It won't take you long to come up with pretty much nothing, right? So we need to continue to tie that together more and more from my estimation. And, Brandon was talking about earlier, I want to take a moment just to brag at him. Having the chairman of transportation live in Alpharetta, Georgia means so much to the people who are on this call right now, to that community. You have no idea how many things Brandon has done, both, even long before his elected office time frame, to make sure that we got those projects here. And it goes way back to not just major things happening in Georgia 400, it's exit ramps, it's roundabouts, it's traffic signals, it's you name it that have happened around here, all the way up into Cherokee County as well. So it is great having that type of partnership and having the type of experience here. It makes a difference. And I want to brag on him one more thing, which I think is important. Some things we do aren't to the public as exciting as others. But it's the simple things that we get to do sometimes, like rename a road after Rick Jackson, right? So somebody who has brought thousands and thousands of jobs to our area, right now Alpharetta, the main campus, but also, as Brandon was saying, does all this phenomenal work on foster care. Well, first, it's a way to honor somebody, but somebody drives by that sign, they say, well, I've heard that name before. I'm going to Google him and look him up. And all of a sudden they say, gosh, maybe I can be a foster parent. That's a big difference, right? Brandon also helped me. We're renaming an area on Highway 9 and 120 in Roswell after Dr. Tom Price, right, who served us in so many wonderful roles, both from the Georgia State Senate to Congress to the presidential cabinet. Started the Memorial Day event in Roswell, which became the largest in the Southeast United States, back as a Roswell Rotarian. So doing things like that helps to spread the goodness and good news. And that's what we need to spend more time on as well. Talking about the positive good news going on, because there's so much good to report, and it's just contagious.
Senator Albers, will stay with you real quick, because earlier Senator Beach touched on the need for people to be safe during this coronavirus pandemic, but also the need to open up business, and because we can't just stay closed. And I know in the past session there were 3 or 4 laws, bills that were passed that would help in that area, but can we legislate that ourselves out of this problem that we have, or is it going to take something else besides just laws?
Well, it will certainly take a good vaccine, which I'm very proud to report, thanks to people like Brandon and Kay Kirkpatrick and the Senate others who are helping to give their platelets and their blood. We had some of the first people begin the next phase of trials. Actually, it started down in Savannah yesterday. And that's a combination by locally based Georgia companies as well as Emory University. So government has a role to play. But government is not the answer to any and all problems, right? It really takes the combination of, first and foremost, individuals' responsibility. It takes businesses to stand up and do the right thing in a smart and practical manner. And it takes the community at large to work together to make that happen. And what I think we've found from this is some really good things. And I want you to take a moment and think about simply this. How many folks have had family dinners over the last 5 months? More than they did the 5 months prior. I mean, I treasure those with my youngest son getting ready to leave for college next week. We got time with him that I never thought we'd have. We were talking earlier about commutes. What we found is more than half of us in Metro Atlanta can telecommute. Imagine if out of that group of people in the future, even when everything's normal again, if everybody telecommuted 2 to 3 days a week. Think of the benefit that we could have to their families. People would spend more time in their community. They'd be at their kids' dance lessons or ball practices more often. They'd join more civic organizations and charitable boards. They'd eat lunch in downtown Alpharetta because they were at home and they weren't maybe driving to Midtown that day, right? There's goodness that can come out of this, and we have to look at everything as a season of life, and it's showing us something new. So together, as a community, or as they say, it takes a village sometimes, I think we'll come out of this better and stronger.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think a friend of mine, her daughter got a speeding ticket on 400. Much less traffic these days, so people are driving, unfortunately, a lot faster. Here's a question. This is to both of you, and Senator Beach, you can go first. It's what was the most challenging bill each of you worked on this past session? Maybe it passed, maybe it didn't. Senator Beach?
Well, the most challenging bill I worked on did not pass, and I will bring it back again next year, and that is we have too many of our kids that can't get in Georgia, Georgia Tech, and some of our flagship universities, and they're going to Alabama, Auburn, Clemson. They're going out of state, and then we tend to have the opportunity that we lose them, and we've spent $100,000 to $125,000 educating them K through 12, and they can't get in our flagship universities. And when I found out that in early admissions, we were allowing 41% from out of state, I just thought that was ridiculous. I mean, we need to, when we're turning kids down that have 4.1s and, 1,450 SATs and 33 ACT scores and they're taking these AP classes and can't get in Georgia, something's wrong. And, I think that we need to look at that. And I got fought tooth and nail by the presidents of the universities. They didn't like that at all. But I will tell you.
Would you care to go into reasons why? I think it maybe, I followed that story.
I thought the reason I thought they fought us was the out-of-state tuition, but then we found out that 52% of out-of-state tuition is being waived to these kids coming from out of state. I mean, if we're going to bring out-of-state folks here, let's make them pay, in my opinion. Right. But I just want to take care of our own kids. I mean, I can tell you, Senator Albers will tell you some of the calls we get is, can you write a letter to help my son or daughter get in Georgia? The grandfather went to Georgia, the grandmother went to Georgia, the mom went to Georgia, the dad went to Georgia, and then the kid can't get in, ends up going to Auburn. You follow me? And I just think that we've got to work on keeping our talent here in Georgia. And I think if we educate them here, then they'll come back here and work. You know, I mean, one of our good friends, Al Nash, is an example. He runs the development authority here for Fulton County. His daughter went to Alabama. She married a gentleman from Birmingham whose family had a business in Birmingham. I believe it was a car business. She is now living in Birmingham with his 2 grandchildren. She's never coming back. We spent $100,000 plus educating her through Roswell High School, and now she's gone. You follow me? That talent has left the state. And I just think we need to keep our talent here. You know, there's a direct correlation between education and economic development. There's a direct correlation between infrastructure investment and economic development. And we need to keep our talent here to continue to be successful in job creation. So I'll bring that bill back again next year. And my original bill was 90% of early admissions state of Georgia, 10% out of state. Then I looked at the North Carolina model, it was 85%. It's been that way 16 years. And Chapel Hill's got a pretty damn good reputation. So I think we could do 85% and Georgia would still have a great reputation. I don't think it would hurt us in any way, shape, or form. I'll tell you this story real quick. When we did the committee hearing on it in higher ed, Senator Strickland asked the Georgia Tech president, he said, I want to ask you a question. If you had 2 identical students, one from Texas and one from Georgia, and they had the same exact courses, AP courses, same exact ACT scores, SAT scores, and GPA, they were exactly the same, who would you take? And at least he was honest. He said, I'd take the kid from Texas in early admissions. He said, because we don't want that kid from Texas going to Cal Berkeley or MIT. He said, and we think the kid from Georgia will wait till later on to come to Georgia Tech. Well, what if they're the same exact scores, that kid in Georgia could go to MIT or Cal Berkeley. You follow me? So we need to take care of our own. I'm not worried about that kid from Texas. I'm worried about our kids. And I'm pretty passionate about this, and we're gonna look at this. And I'm also going to introduce another bill that right now the Board of Regents is all appointed by the governor. I'm going to introduce a constitutional amendment that we elect the Board of Regents like we do the DOT board by the legislature. And maybe then the Board of Regents will give us some time. Let me just say that. Because a lot of times we write them a blank check every year and we have no say on tuition if they want to raise tuition, and we really have no say on admissions or anything else. And I can tell you tuition, it was getting out of hand. They finally somewhat put a freeze on that. But Senator, you want to elaborate on any of that?
Yeah, well, first off, I was very excited to be Senator Beach's #2 signer on that bill. Well, let me give you a real-time example on that as well. Imagine a student in North Fulton County who had a 4.6 on a 4.0 scale, had 54 college credit hours, and got deferred by UGA, and he's going to Alabama on a full ride. That's my son. That's my younger son. It just happened to him. Now, he eventually got into Georgia, but by then, he said, Dad, if they don't want me in the first pass, I don't need to go on the second pass, right? So the problem is there. It's very real, and it impacts our area sometimes more than others. So I'm really I'm proud of the great work that Brandon did in that, and I'm going to join it. Now, for me, another issue that was really challenging was the hate crimes bill. Not because we didn't want to pass something, but there was so much emotion and passion that the bill that we had gotten sent from the House of Representatives to the Senate, I thought, as well as others, was not adequate enough. In fact, we were afraid that if we passed it, it would just be what we'll call a show pony, and then the courts might find it to be unconstitutional. And I know that Brandon and I are not in the business of passing something just for show. And one of the things that was very important to me is the tracking of that information. Because if we didn't have a statewide database to track this, to see what was happening and where it was happening to go after these bad actors, then it would only be a smaller a bit of progress to be made, right? So if somebody did something terrible or a group of people did something, that would be perhaps a one-time isolated incident. And while they might have additional penalties to that crime, it would come and it would go. And one news cycle later, it would be done. But if we can track and trend that there are groups that are systematically doing this stuff, we can take down the whole group of bad actors. And that's what makes a meaningful difference in people's lives. And people have to be safe. They have to feel safe no matter what. So part of doing that is to assure that at the end of the day, we all go home, we can go to bed at night, and we can have a comfortable feeling. We can go to the store, we can go wherever we're going to be, and make sure that Georgia sent not just the right message, but we walk the walk and we talk the talk.
This is a kind of not off-topic question, but it is kind of a personal question to both of you guys. How did you manage having a session, preparing for a session, stopping a session for a couple of months, and then having to kind of rush things through in 11 days to get everything done? What was that like?
Well, I'll start, pass it back over to Brandon, but this is my 10th year in office, and certainly this one takes the cake as far as being a little more erratic and challenging. A lot of folks think sometimes when we're not in legislative session that, not really much goes on. And I joke that our part-time jobs are 40 to 50 hours a week when we're not in legislative session, and 80 to 100 when we are in legislative session. The difference for this was come mid-March when we were suspended, our work actually, for me, went into overdrive like I have never seen in the past. So we would get an average of, as example, 25 people that would call per day for some kind of help. Now, not all of that was us. Sometimes we might refer them to a local school board member or a city, county, or even our counterparts in the federal level. So maybe 10 or 12 are things we could help out with. At the beginning, when this peaked, we were getting 1,200 requests a day. 1,200 a day. Even now, we're still getting 150 to 250. We think that's good in comparison, but remember, the baseline was 25. So it's been extraordinary, but what we immediately started doing is started working on every scenario. I've been on the appropriations committee for the last 8 years, and one of my jobs is I'm the subcommittee chairman, which means I manage the criminal justice and public safety part of the budget. That's about $3.5 billion. Well, I will tell you, I had about 18 different versions of what that $3.5 billion looked like. And it was changing sometimes on a every other day basis, talking to all those department heads, the head of GEMA, Georgia Emergency Management, the State Patrol, the GBI, district attorneys, accountability courts, you name it, because everything was changing so rapidly. It was tough. And then even like I was mentioning earlier, a couple of days before legislative session, Brandon and I weren't still sure what might happen. There could have been an outbreak at the Capitol. We could have passed the budget and went home. That's the only thing that we're constitutionally mandated to do is to pass a balanced budget. And I want to talk about that for just a few seconds. Mm-hmm. We balance our budget every single year in the state of Georgia. You hear about the federal deficit, the federal debt. Georgia has zero. We have a AAA bond rating, one of only 9 states. So actually, probably only going to be about 7 when this is all said and done. And when they did the risk analysis of what states may be able to survive this pandemic, they ranked us. We were ranked number 2 or number 3, depending on the study, with the ability to weather this storm. Now, you think about other states, right? Think about the Northeast. You think about the West Coast or places like Illinois. They were looking to be able to operate for less than about 30 days before they would go completely bankrupt. Yet Georgia was one of the number 2 or number 3 because of the great fiduciary responsibility we have had. And that makes a difference in everything that we do. So being prepared was tough. And I'm a super organized guy. So for my personality, it was testing me to the max. But you know what? Part of our job is to be nimble and do what we do. And again, it ended on a real high note.
Senator Beach, it goes without saying this was memorable for you, but the same question.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I mean, look, it was just the uncertainty was what he said, and also our phone started ringing from people needing help at the Department of Labor. with their unemployment. And for 7 years, I maybe would get 1 or 2 calls a year on unemployment because we had such great jobs and low unemployment here. And then all of a sudden, to John's point, the phone was ringing off the hook for people that needed help, and we were able to help them. But from a personal standpoint, we went in session. I had made the decision not to run for Congress, go back and get in the Senate race. So I was doing that. Was unable to raise any money because we were in session. And then I got COVID-19, got beat up on that and got sick, and then had some uncertainty, came back, and was running a campaign. And also we were getting ready to go back in session. And that changed because it was supposed to be, I think, May 19th, and then we moved it to June 9th. So there was just a lot of changes, a lot of things. And to John's point, we had to be nimble, and you had to change on a dime. But it was an interesting session, and we got through it. And like Senator Albers said, we got some great things done. So good luck.
We have a question about SB 395, the lawsuit liability passed to protect businesses from lawsuits regarding COVID. Either one of you can talk about that.
John will take it. He was very involved in that.
Yeah, it's Senate Bill 359 and the Business Immunity Act. Again, the specific issue is to make sure frivolous lawsuits don't happen. So let's say, for an example, you own a restaurant or a retail establishment. Someone comes in, they walk around, they maybe eat or they buy something, they leave. And then a week and a half later, they say, I got COVID at your restaurant or your retail establishment. Now, the reality is proving that would almost be impossible. However, what you could do is spend tens of thousands of dollars on legal fees, tie up a lot of your very valuable time trying to fight something that's foolish. And we've already seen this again happen starting in California. So we wanted to make sure that wouldn't be an obstacle. And even again, there's a lot of homeowners associations. There's probably half of them, like in and around where I live, off of Crabapple Road, that some of the neighborhood pools are open, and some of them, the homeowners association said, we're too afraid of the risk. They could sue us as board members. They could sue the association. We'll be bankrupt in a New York minute. So this allows take the frivolous part off. However, it does not give a free pass to, we had a couple of nursing homes, candidly, and some in South Georgia that did the wrong thing. So much of the fact that they knew people were infected there, they didn't quarantine them, they didn't notify people, they didn't do anything, and some people were very sick and even some lost their lives. So there is still an ability for folks to have the legal recourse for those that truly did something wrong. However, it has to be truly provable that there's something wrong, and the evidence has to be equal to that. So this was a great compromise, by the way. And, I will tell you, this is how things work sometimes. At the last hour, literally, of the legislative session, I am running out of the Senate chamber, and I had members from the Healthcare Association, the Georgia and Metro Atlanta Chamber of Commerce, the insurance organizations, the trial lawyers associations, you name the group of people, all in a group together. And I finally said, look, everybody likes a little of this and everybody doesn't like part of this. I call that perfect legislation. Yeah. Right? And the word compromise is a good word. It's not a bad word. Compromise is the foundation to everything that's American and how we got here. We went back in and we passed that bill, and ultimately that's one of the reasons why you're going to see why Georgia has a 31.5% unemployment rate lower than the national average.
Excellent, excellent. I'm going to bring Deborah back in. I know she has a question. Deborah?
Thank you, Rick. This has been really informative. Yeah, my question is, let's kind of get real central to Alpharetta and business in Alpharetta. You both, as senators, serve a portion of Alpharetta. It's so exciting to be a part of this growing community and to see all the transformation. Brandon, I remember you were working on the Avalon project and talking about how it was transformational and iconic. And we just continue to see this. Is Alpharetta still the tech hub? Is there a shift? Are we going to see some other industry kind of come in and compete, or is it because technology now is so all encompassing, everybody's involved in tech? So I'd love your perspective of what you see as kind of an emerging or growing addition to what we're already experiencing here in Alpharetta, and again, business focus. Either one of you have any thoughts there?
Why don't you start off, Brandon?
All right. Yeah, I mean, I think that as long as we have what I call 21st century infrastructure in place, the right fiber in the ground, the small cells, and be the leader on any of this new technology, whether it's connected vehicles like I was talking about earlier, I think we'll continue to be the technology capital of the Southeast. And as John said, we want to be the capital of the Eastern Seaboard. I also think that a new industry is going to be supply chain is going to be a major player of jobs that we need to go after, whether it's in healthcare products or whatnot. And I do think those jobs are going to come back to the U.S. and we need to be able to be in a position to say, hey, we're the leader in the supply chain. Very similar to what we were and we still are. But you know, when you talk about the fintech business down there at 285 and 400, it's, you know, what 80% of the credit transactions I think in the country come through that little corridor right there. They call it Transaction Alley. We could do the same thing, I believe. I think supply chain is going to be a huge opportunity, and logistics. But supply chain and logistics will be a huge opportunity, I think, for Georgia. And we've got all the assets with the port, with the airport, with UPS headquartered here. I just think we've got everything that could help us in those two industries. John?
Yeah, just echoing what Brandon's saying, Alpharetta is the technology capital. There's no doubt about that. I think that will continue to increase for several reasons. First, what has been developed in and around that, right? From the residential living to the Avalons, the downtown city centers, et cetera, continues to draw people to a place they truly want to live, work, and play. And quality of life means everything. Interestingly enough, we've watched over the last 10 to 20 years, a lot of people move more into city centers. I actually think that one of the outputs of this is going to do the exact opposite. And I think you're going to see folks who may have moved to Midtown. I've already got 2 folks that I know who have their place up for sale, and they're buying back out in North Fulton County. They're moving back out to us because they found out that, you know what, I can do my job more remote, and I don't want to make the commute anymore. Why would I? I don't want to be in the middle of the soup anymore. So I think we're so uniquely positioned as clearly one of the best places to live, work, play, raise a family, that it will only get better. And when you see good companies, other good companies want to be around them. They want to start a business close to those companies. They want to expand businesses. They want to truly be in that network. And I always want to remind people of this. This is really, really important. 35 years ago, the best place in the Southeast United States, the best schools, the best place to live, the best place to raise your family, the best place to start a business, the best public safety, the best infrastructure, you name it, in the whole Southeast United States was where? DeKalb County, Georgia. I want you to think about that for a second. A generation ago, we were DeKalb County, Georgia. So we have got to be ever vigilant. And I don't want to say that, there aren't some good areas to DeKalb and some good things happening, but you can't compare Alpharetta and DeKalb County. That's an unfair fight, right? So we want to make sure that we keep all those things we hold so critical in those good places. And it's going to take each one of us to do that, which is going to be great jobs and great education and great infrastructure and all the things we talked about today. It could never be more important, because I want both of my kids to be able to live right here in this community and watch my grandkids on those ball fields and in those schools.
It's very exciting. I got a call the other day from Humble, Texas. Alpharetta's on the map. Humble, Texas has a client that's moving freight, and they're looking to make Alpharetta their U.S. headquarters, and then looking for warehousing and fulfillment. I pick up the phone, I'm making a call who someone makes their living out of the supply chain, logistics, warehousing, fulfillment solutions. Everybody wins. So it was exciting to be a part of a call where you're connecting the dots. And to your point, Brandon, transportation is key, and the infrastructure and the allowing these trucks are coming in. And so how they're able to access where they're going, where that warehousing is. And then that also begs the question about, do we have the space? Will we continue to have warehousing and fulfillment opportunities here? There's only so much real estate, but exciting to know that someone from states away calls and is calling the Alpharetta Chamber of Commerce for a solution on moving freight, warehousing, and fulfillment. So glad I picked up the phone. Thanks, you guys. I think, Rick, is there anything else? Any other questions as we're getting to sign off?
I just want to thank both senators for their great insights, and it was awesome. So let's do it again.
Very good.
Well,
and again,
thanks.
Brandon and John, thank you so much for your hard work and your kind words earlier in this webinar. I will give you the last few minutes. Any sign off comments or anything you'd like to add?
Well, I'll go first. I will tell you that, again, thank y'all for what y'all do. And to Senator Albers' point about DeKalb County, as he said, that you're either forward or reverse. I always say there's no automatic pilot. You're either going up or you're going down. And we got to make sure we keep our eye on the ball and make sure we have good schools and good infrastructure and so on to continue to have prosperity. But I will tell you this, and I say this a lot, and I don't mean to get too political, but I am in politics. When you go to the polls and vote, I mean, you need to look at the candidates. And I'm a firm believer government doesn't create jobs. You guys do, chambers. The business community creates the jobs. But we as government can create a conducive environment through friendly tax policy, less regulation, educated workforce, infrastructure investment, and really just quality of life. And if we can do those basics and get out of the way and give you the tools in the toolbox to prosper as a private company, then y'all will hire if we give you those tools. And so when you go to the ballot box and you vote, you need to look at who's pro-business and who's not. And I'm pro-business. I was president and CEO of the chamber. John Albers is pro-business. And we've got to make sure that we have pro-business folks down there because there's a lot of folks down there that are not pro-business. And they don't understand how tax policy and less regulation and what small businesses go through. John and I are fortunate. We've both signed the front of a paycheck, and that's important. We know what it's like. I mean, I had a little restaurant called Hancock. I had 13 employees. I knew I had to meet a payroll every 2 weeks. And so I would just say that, check your candidates out and go vote and make sure you're looking at folks that really want to be helpful to small business and businesses, medium and large here in North Fulton and in Alpharetta. We want to keep the Rick Jacksons, the Jackson Healthcares of the world. We want him to build another building and hire another 1,000 employees within the next 10 years. We want to see these businesses continue to grow. But it cannot happen it can get away from you if you don't have the proper tax policy, the proper infrastructure, and the proper tools in the toolbox to be successful. So I would just remind you of that and keep working hard on economic development and policy issues, both at the local level, city council level, and the state level and the federal level. Be engaged because when you're engaged, we listen. I will leave it at that. So, and don't forget to vote on November 3rd. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Brandon. And just to add on to his comments, sometimes we think that it could never happen here. I've been picking on California today, but they deserve it, so I will for another moment. Look at even Tesla is picking up and leaving, right? And California didn't become California overnight, right? That happened over time, a little bit at a time, to all of a sudden they went from the place you wanted to bring your business to a place where businesses are leaving at an alarming rate, right? And Ronald Reagan said it best, the greatest social program ever created is a job. That's why we're so fortunate in Alpharetta of having literally the lowest unemployment in the entire state. So let me just finish by again thanking you, Deborah, and reminding everybody that even though we're living in an unprecedented time of history, and there are difficult days that will still lie ahead, we're going to overcome this. Our greatest days are still yet to come. And after all, remember, we're Georgians. we're Americans. We always find a way to persevere. Every day, what I'm witnessing in our community is ordinary people doing extraordinary things. These are the stories that inspire each one of us, and they're the true reflection of what the American spirit is. This is what we see in our fellow citizens, and take a moment to smell the roses. I believe this will actually become one of our finest hours as we rise up as our community, state, and nation, and we'll win the battle against disease, and we'll do it by helping our fellow businesses and our fellow neighbors. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to serve. God bless you.
Thank you. Well, there you have it, everyone. We appreciate it. This has been your 2020 legislative recap with Senator John Albers and Senator Brandon Beach, produced by Michael Grillo and moderated by Rick Hancock.
Thank you, guys.
All. Have a great
Thank you.
afternoon. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Thanks.
Take care.